Welcome to the Wild Dog Arcade. Today our Godzilla gets more interactive. Alright, today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be installing two different mods. First off, Mezel Mods makes an illumination kit for our Godzilla Pro building. So right now it really doesn't have much interaction. So this is going to allow it to tie in with the game, light up from the inside and do some cool effects. Second, I'm going to be putting a building facade on here. Now this one is a 3D printed mod. There is another facade you can buy from Mezel Mods as well if you don't have a 3D printer and don't feel like doing this. I have a 3D printer and I like doing painting, so I thought I would do this print. I will put the links to all of these below, so follow along and we'll go through this install. All right, first up, this is what's included in the Mezel Mods kit. Basically, it's some LEDs, an LED strip, and some wires that tie into different bulbs in the game to get the interaction, some adhesive pads, zip tie. So this is a fairly basic install, pretty much plug and play, so definitely an easy one you can do if you want to do it yourself. All right, the second part of this mod is the variety of 3D printed parts. As you can see here, I've got three building facades, the front and the left and the right, and it's a two-piece building top. Basically, it bolts on over top of the original plastics in the game, so this is not a complete disassembly of it, it's more of a facade and overlay. I have a multi-filament printer, so I'm able to print these in one shot, so the gray and the blue both get printed at the same time. If you don't have a multi-filament printer, you may want to consider purchasing the Mezel Mods version. Now, I did a bunch of painting on these. Instead of just printing them in the gray and blue and bolting it in, I wanted them to kind of look damaged, similar to some of the other mods that I've got on the game. So what I did is I went in and I used a old soldering iron, poked holes, made score marks, and then painted some black and then some yellow, red, and orange embers to make it look like it's burning. Kind of wanted it to tie in more with the aesthetics of some of the other mods I've got in this machine. If you want to see the painting, you can go to the end of the video. I'll put some of that there. All right, now we're going to get on to the install of the Mezel Mods interactive building kit. So first thing you want to do is always turn off your game and unplug it. You don't want any stray currents. You don't want to damage your game. So unplug it before you get to work. All right, first off, we want to remove the top of the building. Basically, there are 4 Phillips screws here, and you can just unscrew them pretty easy. And voila, your building top is off. All right, first thing you're going to want to do is put the playfield in the server's position. Make sure you take out the balls so they don't fall out and damage anything on the actual upper part of the playfield. Then locate these 2 light bulbs. So they're kind of at the bottom, middle right. So remove these and you need a 1/4-inch nut driver and just take them out. All right, when you pull them out, make note, they are 2 different colors of bulbs. The red is on the top and the white is on the bottom. That'll be very important for you to hook up the next part. Okay, now what you want to do is replace your light bulbs. So push in, twist, pull out the old bulbs. I keep them in the coin door in case I ever need to undo this mod. So in that, in the kit, you're going to find some wiring harnesses with a red and a white one. So make sure you plug in the same color back into the original sockets. Basically, that ties into the GI, keeps some of the GI, but then ties in the other mod parts. In the kit, you'll find this other jumper harness. So basically what you're going to do is this is going to splice into the original harness and pulls off power for the mod. So find this connector, comes out of the same hole, unplug it, and then we're just going to put the jumper back in it. So basically it plugs in exactly as it does today. So basically the original bulb will still work, pulls off the power for the mod. All right, now you can put the bulb back in their position. So remember, red goes in the top, white goes in the bottom. So just reinstall the bulb sockets. Okay, this step's going to be a little different than the instructions because I'm going to loosen up all of these side plastics because I'm going to be taking them loose so I can put the overlay on it later. But I'm just going to loosen all the screws so I can get them out of the way. So that one there, this one, these are only being loosened. I'm taking the top screws out so that they flex open. The new mod will actually just attach to that top screw. Front plate's going to be a little different. I'm going to take it completely off. So there's 2 screws, and you can get right to them. Try not to drop your screws. They're tiny. All right, and this one should rotate right out of the way. Okay, this next step I'm going to do, I'm going to take off some of these plastics and get them out of my way so I can route the wires a little bit easier. You don't have to do this, you can fish them in. I'm just going to do this to make it a lot easier on myself. So you've got 2 Phillips screws that hold the rails in place. You've got 2 hex nuts that hold on a stud. So before you get too crazy, make sure you pull out that washer that's hiding underneath the rail there. Don't lose them in the game. All right, so we're kind of mostly loose. There are these hex posts that are here. I'm going to get a wrench and actually remove them so I can remove the plastics. That will let me feed the wires up, make sure everything's nice and neat before I put those plastics back in. All right, go back to the underside of the playfield. You're gonna see, with this harness is all in place, there should be 3 exposed connectors. So this one's got a piece attached to it. You're gonna have to take that off so you can feed the wires up through this hole. Notice that they all have 2 of them have zip ties, red, blue, and 1 doesn't. That way you can't install these wrong. So first thing you do is unplug this mini connector and then feed the 3 remaining wires up that hole. There, once they're fed through, put the playfield back in the down position, and then we can go on to doing the wiring. All right, next what I'm going to do is I'm going to start installing the actual LEDs. There are 3 different LEDs. There's a single little pod, there's a strip, and then there's this panel. All 3 of them go inside the building here, and each one has a different purpose. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install the big panel here. So there's a hole and a screw. Take this screw off, bolt it right through there. Next up, I'm going to put this little blue piece in here with this little pad of LEDs. So there is some included 3D self-adhesive sticks, and this is going to go right in the middle. So basically, install in the middle of the pad, peel. I always hate getting these off. All right, now that's done, and position it so it's basically in the middle of the actual unit, and then strap it down or squish it down. So that's 2 of them installed. Now the other one, this one's it's like a light bar you see on the front of a UTV. It's going to sit just in here behind everything. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take, you got to put some double-sided adhesive tape on the back as well, so it doesn't come pre-installed. So install it, 1 pad and 2 pads. So make sure it's squished on there good. Peel the other side's cover off, and this is going to sit right on there. Kind of center it pretty well. Stick it down. So these all go on to the plastic cover here. So you're going to see you've got a variety of different connections you still got to make. All right, time to hook up some wires. So as I mentioned before, there's actually some color coding to these wires. So 2 of them have a red and a blue zip tie on it, and then the other one does not. So it's pretty easy to hook up the correct one. So first thing let's hook up is the blue one. So down in there, when you put the little spotlight in the bottom, there was a blue printed base. So the blue zip tie goes to the blue. That's pretty explanatory. So now the red one, there's a couple of things you're going to want to do. One is this LED here actually had a connection that was loose. I don't know if that was intended or whatnot, but plug that one in. So basically plug that in. That connects both of these LED panels together. And then you take the red. Notice this zip tie is down here on this one. So red to the end of this connector, and that will plug it right in. Boom, there's the red and the blue connections made. And then take the last remaining one and hook it to this front LED bar. So this completes all of the wiring underneath the hood here. It all will tuck inside when you get the whole thing back together. So now what we're going to do is we're going to turn it on and we're going to run through some tests to make sure they're hooked up right. All right, I have turned on the game, and so you can see it's pretty washed out because they're LEDs. So you can see that the back ones, let me rotate over. So these back ones here are red. They're tied into the red bulb down here. You can see the red bulb is on back here. White is turned on to the white, and then we've got the LED strip on the front. So let's go into the test menu. I'm going to go to the lamp test, and we're going to do GI. There we go, that one, upper playfield GI, red. Upper playfield whites, that's flashing. Okay, so you can see the red and the white are working. All right, let's do a flasher test. Building spot. Top spinner flasher. Boom, 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 boom. So that's going off with the same flasher over to the right. So it looks like it's all hooked up. So now we can move on to putting it back together. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plastics back into place to cover up the wiring. So this is our flasher plastic. I'm going to move that down onto there. So there's a couple of things we got going on. Spree wires, that's what's going on. So let me find a nut. I'll start the nut on the front here. All right, next step is the hex post here. So we're going to go back down, put the washer on, and let's get this hex post going in here. So grab that and my little 1/4-inch wrench, and let's snug that in place. Don't go too tight. Don't want to strip anything out. Doesn't need to be terribly tight. All right, so now let's get the other piece of plastic in here, which will help secure these wires coming out of here. You don't want them in the way of the ball. There's a kind of a little crevice that they will stick in. Okay, this piece of plastic will go in and cover the remaining bits. And that is the cover color. Find the other nut, put that on there, and then we'll tuck the wires kind of out of the way. Nut. Okay, so the base plastics are in. There's a nut, hex post, nut, and hex post. So now let's do something with this wiring. So the wiring right now kind of falls in and stuff like that. What I'm going to do is get a piece of tape and put it on the backside just to keep the wirings nice and neatly tucked on the backside. The mod that I'm doing, I did not print the back, so I'm leaving it as the bare plastic as it came from Stern. It is not really seen in the game, so it's not that important. But let's move on and let us put the rails back in place. It's got a washer that goes underneath. This one wants to flex a bit, so be patient with this one. And also don't lose your nut or washer. Okay. There she is, folks. All right, so next up, I'm going to get some tape, put that on there, and then we will continue on with the installation. All right, moving on to the building facades. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be installing the front here. So this pops in, it's going to screw on just like the original. I'm not going to put the original plastic on this front because I can completely remove it, so it will light up a little bit better. So now just get your small Phillips and let's screw the things back together. Now we're going to do one of the sides. I need a very small screwdriver in order to fit in the space. So tiny little one here. All right, the other side. These sides are they're an overlay, so they only screw in with the top screws. All right, that's 3 sides. So the top actually consists of a few pieces here. It's actually 3 pieces, or 2 pieces that layer on top of each other. So kind of find the ones that match up. And then what you're going to do is put them on, tucking this stuff in, and then they're going to just screw into the original screw points, which is going to be easier said than done. All right, there we go. We got the building facade on. That really changes the look of it. Matches the other Stumbler style mods that I've got in the game. So it's got damage on it. It's got little burning embers on it, and then when it lights up, these are translucent, so it'll light up really nicely. So let's put it back in, turn the game on, and see how it all looks together. All right, we're turning the game on. Start up in progress. Oh, and there we go. Got some of the lighting going on. That's what we wanted to see. Some glowing. It's like you can even see it, you know, the front light strip right there is in the front. You even got some glow through since it's a pretty thin plastic part, where on the top looks like the building is burning from the inside. So yeah, this is gonna look cool. Let's go through some of the tests and do some of the lighting tests. And there we go. There's the upper playfield white, the upper playfield red, white, red, and now let's go with the flashers. And there we go. There's what the flashers look like in the building. So now we've got this cool facade and good lighting on there. So excellent mod. Welcome to the painting. So what you see in front of you is the parts that I 3D printed. We've got the front and the left and the right, and then a 2-piece top. Thanks to LynnInDenver, who put these mods together. These are an overlay, so they're going to be bolting on in front of the plastic. So what I'm going to do now is paint. But first thing I'd like to do is, first thing I do when I'm going to paint any of these are painted with a PETG, and the first thing I do is use an adhesion promoter for plastics. So that way it basically melts the surface just a little bit, gives it something to bite into. What I did after that is I had printed the windows in a blue, but it was very transparent. So what I did is I just frosted it with this Duplicolor Perfect Match. I found this at the auto parts store. It's a pretty close color, and I just ghosted the back. So what it does is it gives it a little more opacity, so when the lights show through there, it won't be so so distinct. After I'm done painting, I'm going to actually clear it with a matte finish, so just a Krylon low order clear finish. This will match some of the other mods that I've got going on in the game. Well, I didn't want to go with high gloss here. Alright, so I'm going to create some battle damage. I've just got an old soldering iron in here that I'm going to do some melting and dimpling of the surface to give it look like that Godzilla has actually done some attacking. So I'm just going to do some creative melting in some certain places to give it some damage. Okay, so there's some of the battle damage. So basically I've just melted bits and pieces of the surface here. I'm going to clean off some little stringers and stuff like that and loose things. And then I'll get on to actually painting. So this piece, you know, you only see the side because this goes on top. So I did some damage on there. And I'll clean off all of this stuff. Get a little X-Acto knife, pop off the excess, and then ready for paint. Alright, so I've done a lot of the painting. So I did a lot of these detail work off camera because my head was in the way, so it wasn't really worth watching. But so you can see I've done a little bit of the black work, and then over top of it I've overlaid a watered down red, orange, and yellows to get myself some really good burning effect. This is all ready for clear coat now, so you can see the different damage on this part, so a little bit burning. So it kind of goes with the destroying aesthetic on this thing. So this is ready to put onto the game after I clear coat it. All right, there we go. We got our building modded with interactive lighting from Mezel Mods and then a 3D printed facade. I will put the links to the 3D print files. If you got a 3D printer at home, I'll put a link to the Mezel Mods lighting kit as well. If you don't have a 3D printer and you want to do the same thing, Mezel Mods offers a very similar mod for your building for the facade on that. So you can also buy that there if you just want to do a bolt in and bolt and run. Thanks for watching this video. We do live gameplay on both Twitch and YouTube, so join us on one of those platforms and you can see us play games, talk to us, ask about the game, see how it's played, and we hope to see you then.